Chronicles of Cigarnia, where we pair and review two of the best things in the world, books and cigars. Today we have the wonderful, delightful novel, The Princess Bride, which inspired the epic, iconic film, along with a memoir from Cary Elwes about his time making the film called As You Wish. And we are pairing it with Sinistro's Mr. Black cigar. Now, those of you who are fans know that Cary Elwes is often called the man in black in the film. And I know Mr. Black isn't exactly the same, but it was the closest I could find for a pairing, so if you're here for one thing and not the other, maybe stick around. It's, a new year and there might be something you want to try. And I mean, both of these things are wonderful. For example, here we have a lovely Robusto from Sinistro called Mr. Black. Let's just get right into this. So the wrapper is quite veiny, actually, and what I would call rustic, which I appreciate because it reminds me that, hey, yes, this is a leaf that we're smoking here. I also really like this label. It's really dramatic with the silver on the black. And I like how noir it feels with the gentleman and his fedora and the cigar. So I think it's a very attractive label. It smells like you're walking into a barn that's like piled high with bales of hay. Turns out the people who stack those bales of hay don't appreciate it when you decide to like jump up and down on them like they do in the films. Yeah, it just like throws up a lot of like hay dust and it's terrible for the allergies and anyway, cigar. Without further ado, okay, pre-light draw. Sweet tobacco. So this is my first cigar from this company, Sinistro. They also have a Mr. White, I believe, and a Mr. Red, and I think a Mr. White Gold if you're getting fancy. Ooh, very sweet, very nice. A nice start to this cigar. Sweet cashew creaminess instantly. Very nice. Oh, people, I hope, and kind of assume you have seen the iconic film, The Princess Bride. I'd be surprised if you haven't seen it. If you turn on the television at any given time, at least here in the United States, it seems to be playing somewhere on some channel because it is so wonderful and funny and heartfelt. For those of you who haven't seen it, oh my gosh, you're gonna love it. It is a spoof on a traditional fairy tale, but it is hilariously funny with the most silly special effects. And when you do see it, you're suddenly going to understand a bunch of movie quotes that people around you have been saying for years because it is full of wonderfully memorable lines. So I'm the biggest nerd, and I tend to deep dive into things I like, which of course includes the movie The Princess Bride. So I was reading an interview with Rob Reiner, the director, and he mentioned that he and Cary Elwes, who is one of the actors, loved the novel when they were kids. And of course my ears perked up and I was like, there's a novel! So I had to search it out and see what this novel was like. So if you could see here on my t-shirt, this is the original cover of the novel. I'm gonna try to do this without the jacket for as long as I can. What you can't see is that on the other side of this camera, there is snow. And it is really cold, so I'm gonna try to tough it out, but Princess Bride. Those of you who follow my Instagram will see I posted a picture where there was a snowblower here in this space where I usually film. So, you gotta make allowances for the weather, I guess. So it turns out the writer of the book, The Princess Bride, also wrote the screenplay. And what's wonderful is that sometimes they are word for word the same. So that same wonderful humor you get in the film is also all the way through this book. It is hilarious. Some lines that Billy Crystal had when he played Miracle Max, I thought he was improvising. And while he does improv a lot of it is from William Goldman. It is super, super funny. But before I tell you more about this, I want to talk about what's happening with the first bit of the cigar. It's a nice open draw. burning pretty evenly with some thin blue smoke. There is a nice balance so far of some nutty creaminess with a little bit of hot pepper that flashes in every once in a while. It gives it some good interest. And there is some nice sweetness that is lingering as a kind of aftertaste. So yeah, very nice. I'm really enjoying the beginning of this cigar. Okay, I do want to just show off for a second that I do have a 30th anniversary edition of this book. And I do have many pins and magnets and all kinds of paraphernalia. I am a true Princess Bride nerd fan. So in the film, you have a grandfather reading this book to his sick grandson. And what this allows is some really fun interruptions to the narrative of the story where maybe the two lovers in the story start to kiss and the grandson goes, ew, is this a kissing book? And it stops all of the action, right? And then they skip ahead to the next exciting bit. Or the grandfather will suddenly stop the action and be like, they do not get eaten at this time. Only you seemed a little bit worried and I didn't want to upset you. And you see that the grandson is gripping his blankets and he's like, no, please, go on. So it's really cute in that you flip back and forth that way. And the book does a similar thing, only the setup is a little bit different. William Goldman has made up a fictional author called S. Morgenstern, who is from the country of Florin, whose epic novel, The Princess Bride, is a telling of a traditional tale from his country. And supposedly William Goldman is the translator into English and of the good bits. However, there is no such writer. There is no such country as Florin. William Goldman is the true writer. But this setup allows him to do a similar thing in that he will interrupt the narrative with an aside or with footnotes that are hilarious and fun to read. And he has a wonderful introduction where he talks about some of the trials and problems he had in translating this material. So it is delightful in that same way. And the dialogue and the characters are similarly funny. And they are also so heartfelt and warm and fun to be with. If you liked the characters of Fezzik and Inigo, which were played by Andre the Giant and Maddie Patinkin, you're gonna love this because you get quite a bit more about their backstory and what they're thinking. So that's lovely. You also get a lot more about Buttercup and Wesley. One of the things about the movie that Cary Elwes notes in his memoir is that Robin Wright, who played Buttercup, had to be like the solid straight center while everyone around her was making jokes and having fun. So she didn't get to be very funny, but in the book, we get so much of what's going on in her brain, and she is hilarious. She doesn't think so, but she is. So moving into the second third of the cigar, that creamy nuttiness has remained, and it's getting even more smooth. There is a good dose of tobacco flavor that is creeping into this. So that goes back to the initial pre-light draw. It's burning really nice, and while the ash looks like it might be a little bit flaky, it just looks that way. It isn't actually. It's staying together really well, especially considering all this that's going on. So yeah, yummy. So if you are a fan of the film, you might have noticed that Cary Elwes put out a memoir about his time making it called As You Wish. It's been a few years now, and I have to say that every winter since it's come out, I have picked this up to read it again because it is just such an entertaining, fun experience. And this year I did something a little different in that I got the audio version, which I highly recommend because, of course, Cary Elwes narrates it, but you also get the voices of a lot of the different actors, producers, and the director. So it's fun to hear Billy Crystal and Rob Reiner talk about some of their experiences directly. I have to say I am a little suspicious because everyone has only wonderful things to say about how much fun they had on this film. The only guy that has anything negative to say at all is Wallace Shawn, the guy on my pin who plays Veiny. He has some really funny things to say about how he's afraid of heights. And he had to film high up with the cliffs of insanity strapped to Andre the Giant, and how he didn't really enjoy that. But also that he had heard Danny DeVito was the person they originally wanted for his part, even though Rob Reiner denies that. And he said that every time he would deliver a line, he had the ghost of Danny DeVito over his shoulder going, well, I would have played it differently, right? So yeah, that would intimidate anybody, I think. As a side note, when I was a teenager working in a candy store, I actually served Danny DeVito and his family some ice creams that we made. So yeah, my one brush with fame. But aside from that, this book is just full of wonderful anecdotes about making the film and the different actors and how it all came together. I'll just quickly share two with you. One of my favorite anecdotes is about Andre the Giant and how he was at a hotel bar having drinks and he had a few too many. And walking out through the lobby, he just laid down in the middle of the lobby and passed out. And because he's Andre the Giant, nobody could wake him and nobody could move him. The entire staff could not get him to move. So their solution was to put a red velvet rope around him as he slept, and they just left him there. And the next morning he got up and left. I think only the Andre the Giant can get away with that. Probably wouldn't work so well if it was you or me. Another fun story that Cary Elwes tells about himself is that when he was goofing around on set, he accidentally broke his toe. And he had to film the scene at the top of the hill where he reveals himself as the Dread Pirate Roberts to Buttercup, and she pushes him down the hill, right? So if you go back to the scene, you can see him sit down in a very suave way with like his leg extended. And it looks like he's just being like very relaxed and like whatever, but it's because he can't put any weight on his foot. So that is a fun little tidbit you get from this. Okay, fast forward in time to the final third of the cigar. It has maintained that nutty flavor. It has increased in creaminess. The tobacco flavor has diminished. It has maintained a really good burn all the way through. It looks a little rough here, not its fault. I dropped it, as I do very often. But I mean, come on, like try to juggle 2 books and a cigar and not catch your hair on fire at the same time. You know, it's not easy to do, people. And just thinking forward to the fourth third of the cigar, meaning how it stays around with you, our experience on the tasting panel is that this is a very sweet, very cigar-y type of smelling cigar as far as room notes go. And they are going to stay with you. You are going to be advertising this cigar from your hair and your clothes for hours to come. Not always a bad thing, but just something to be aware of. It's not an incredibly strong cigar. I would say maybe a medium as far as strength. And just a tasting note. When I was originally tasting this cigar, I had an espresso with it. Oh my gosh, the espresso is wonderful. It really brings out the creaminess of the cigar. So I highly recommend reading the book, having the cigar, sipping an espresso. And because you're gonna be up for a while, because you've just had an espresso, you can then watch the film. Sounds like a great day. It's like a Princess Bride marathon. And if you wanna be a big nerd, you can get a t-shirt like me. I think my nose is turning red because I'm so chilly. Cold. Ooh. Okay, before I talk about what I'm going to do for the next episodes, I want to say welcome to the new subscribers. Thank you for being here and watching. I'm pleased to have you. And of course, thank you for those of you who keep coming back to watch, who have already subscribed. I appreciate your views and your likes and of course your comments. It's always great to hear from you. So I have 2 things coming up, I hope. One is what I hope will be a short review about a book called Plain Bad Heroines, which is a gothic, sapphic horror novel. And then I will have a longer review after that that will take into consideration the plethora of great Rex Stout mystery novels, the Nero Wolfe mysteries that I just consumed like candy canes during the holiday season. In the meantime, I hope you're smoking some good cigars. I hope the new year is bringing you a ton of good new books. And ideally, I hope that you are experiencing them both at the same time, because it's a lot of fun. And maybe you'll be inspired to watch The Princess Bride again. It's a good time. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you very soon. So my mom got me this box of 3 cigars for Christmas, and when I opened it, I was like, I haven't seen this brand before. And they look kind of strange, so I pulled one out and I was like, chocolate. Delicious. They actually are chocolate. They look real, right? Thanks, Mom.